So our first panelist is Bella Allieery. As many of you know, Bella is one of, well, you might not know that she's one of my all-time favorite Princeton student athletes and one of the greatest players we've seen here at Princeton. She's a professional basketball player in the WNBA with the Dallas Wings. She's right now in Spain playing the Spanish Professional League, and she's from the great class of 2020. At Princeton, Bella was a two-time All-American, three-time Ivy League Player of the Year, four-time first-team All-Ivy. She was the 2020 C. Otto von Kienbusch Award recipient, the award that recognizes our very best female athlete. With the season being cut short last year, Bella ended her career with a 21-game win streak. Just last week, Bella helped lead Avenida to a runner-up finish in the Women's EuroLeague. Congrats, Bella, and it's so great to see you here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. And it's 1 in the morning, right, Bella?
Yes, but
so she's doing us
it's
a
worth
huge
it for
favor.
Princeton athletics.
All right, I love it. Next, we have another Princeton great, former All-American swimmer and 2005 C. Otto von Kienbusch recipient, Stephanie Schau, from the great class of 2005. Stephanie began her career in sports marketing with Speedo in Los Angeles, then moved to Beijing to work for Octagon Sports. She's been the marketing director for NFL China since 2008, currently based in Shanghai. Stephanie is responsible for all aspects of local fan development, including content marketing and grassroots football development. Welcome and thank you for being here, Stephanie. So excited.
Thank you, Molly. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And then we have one of my all-time favorite Princeton ice hockey teammates, Whitney Malcolm. Whit helped lead the team to the 1992 Ivy League championship. Yes, that was the year after I graduated, so I don't get to wear the same ring. Whitney is currently the vice president GM of Nike Women's, where she oversees all aspects of the women's division of Nike, including footwear, apparel, etc. In this role, she drives cross-functional integration across all the women's verticals. She's been with Nike for 17 years in a variety of senior management roles and in various locations around the world. But this new role is absolutely amazing, and we can't wait to hear about her vision for changing the world through sports. And last, but certainly not least, so welcome, Whit. Jump on there.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you.
Awesome. And last, but certainly not least, we have the amazing Jill Pilgrim from the great class of 1980. Jill entered PU in 1976 and was a member of the first ever women's track and field team at Princeton. She was captain of the 1980 Ivy League championship team. She's the founder and managing attorney of Pilgrim and Associates Law Office, focusing on business, nonprofit, and sports law. Throughout Jill's career, which has been quite remarkable, she served as a general counsel for USA Track and Field and the LPGA. She's currently a member of the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics, and she teaches sports law at Columbia Law School, where she earned her JD. So with that, we are all here and ready to get going. You guys ready?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and if you want to jump in, just raise your hand and let me know that you want to add something. So my first question, Jill, is going to go to you. So ESPNW and Ernst & Young did a study in 2015 and found that more than 50% of all women in C-suite positions played college sports, and nearly 40% of all women at other management levels played collegiately. From your experiences, why do you think former female student athletes achieve such a disproportionate number of these management and C-suite roles?
That's addressed to me, Jill?
That's you, Jill, go for it.
Okay, so, well, I think there's some obvious reasons. It's the confidence and the leadership skills that you learn, and the sort of cooperative working towards a common goal, skills that you achieve working, being a part of the team, the discipline, obviously, from getting up early and grinding it out in whatever sport you're in, traveling, and having to execute on the road. So it seems like there's a pretty good correlation and straight line. But I think the confidence and the sense that I can do this is really huge that you get from being a part of sports.
And how about being one of the first in the 70s, sort of the pioneers of women's athletics at Princeton? Do you think that gave you some extra special edge in your career, having to sort of do this when others were not at that time?
You know what's really weird about that, and maybe the younger women athletes here will identify with this. I was such a jockette and so involved in sports and had so many opportunities to participate in sport. I was a pretty embedded, accomplished track and field athlete with a great team that had a whole bunch of Olympians on it before I came to Princeton. So I didn't even know really that Princeton was so behind, because all the schools that I had gone to had girls' teams, and I played volleyball and basketball and field hockey and soccer, and then eventually did track. So I actually had to learn about Title IX and that these opportunities were being created and weren't there at the collegiate level for women beforehand. So I sort of came in with a little bit of a swagger, and then had to learn, oh, we don't have an official team, we don't have uniforms, all the things that I used to have at my club team where we had everything, all of a sudden that didn't exist. So it was an interesting transition, and I got to sit on the search committee that eventually brought on a full-time paid coach so that we could actually have a budget to travel to competitions and get uniforms. So, but I actually didn't know that we were disadvantaged at the time.
Well, I think that coach is on this call right now. I think I saw him jump
Yes.
in. Coach Farrell, and he told me about having to go to the U store to buy the uniforms for the first track meet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so the next question I have, Whit, I'm going to go to you on this one. So you and I have talked about this before, but an important topic that I'm obsessed by, and I actually wrote my thesis largely on this topic, is the role of athletics in society and how women's sports can, both illustrate and help break down barriers around sort of socially constructed gender norms. So over the past, year plus, we've seen women across the athletics landscape use their voices to fight for equality, for equal pay, for changing perceptions of women's athletics, and really women more broadly. So whether it be the U.S. women's national team or the WNBA, or most recently the NCAA women's basketball and women's volleyball tournaments, how do you, you spend your life thinking about women's athletics and the women's athletics landscape on all levels. How is Nike thinking differently about the female athlete today?
Awesome. Well, first, the fact, Molly, that you remember what you wrote your thesis on is incredible. So kudos to you.
Well, I read you some passages the other day.
You did. Molly whipped out her thesis and was reading to me over Zoom. It was quite nice. I would never read my thesis because it really was not one of my better pieces. So I think that's such a great question. I mean, there's so much embedded in that question. One of the things that we are working really hard at Nike at is being unapologetic about the barriers to sport. And I think we all know what those are, and it comes in so many ranges, whether it's pay equity, whether it's media coverage, whether it's storytelling. And so I think what we've done over Nike, I think really, really confidently over the last, and it's funny, Jill, you said that, but confidently over the last 5 years is go straight at it and talk about it. And so we have everything from barriers to sport being coaching at the youth level. And are we developing coaches and the programming for coaches correctly for young girls to want to play sport? Because we know the biggest drop off, and everyone on the call, I'm sure knows this, at around 12 or 13, you're seeing a lot of teen girls drop out of sport. And so we want to go after that because everyone on this call has benefited from the incredible parts of sport and what they've done for our lives. The other thing that is super interesting that and other partners on the phone I know are going after this as well is talking about innovation for her. And I can tell you that Nike kind of grew up as a male brand for sure, thinking about innovation for the male athlete. And there's so much that gets in our way as female athletes, whether you're young in your life or later in life. So that comes in the form of injury prevention, that comes in the form of menstrual cycles and the impact that may have actually on your ability to train, that comes in the form of let's say maternity and motherhood and what it feels like to be pregnant and the changes that your body goes through. And so going straight at barriers to sport is super important. And Bella is one of those amazing athletes right now playing in sport today. Like, how do we tell everyone's story and get that front and center? And so people fall in love with all the female athletes that are doing incredible things. So all of those but going straight at barriers to sport, I think, is one way we all win on this one.
And is that why they sort of restructured and your role now exists? So this is a new role that you're in for the past year, and maybe just talk a little bit about kind of your role and how you're looking across all the verticals within Nike of women.
Yeah. You know, back in 2009, Nike went through a big reorg where we wanted to double down on sport, and that was super important. So we had a running division, we had a basketball division, we had an American football division, we had a global football division. And so that was really important. But what we realized over the time is that we always were continuing to kind of lead with men's and following with women's. And so that didn't feel great. And so within the last year, we decided to pivot and create a structure in which we have an incredible women's team, we have an incredible men's team, and we have an incredible kids team. And we get to obsess every day what will make female athletes better. And that athlete could be someone who's playing in college. That athlete, though, could also be an incredible dancer. That athlete could be someone who's just trying to feel better and just feel great about themselves in life. And so that comes in the form of physical activity, that can come in the form of mental, meditation, that could come in the form of health. And so it feels really kind of exciting, the fact that we have people every day thinking about women and what will make them progress in life. And back to Jill's word of confidence, and how do you build confidence in women? So it's a super exciting step that we've taken as a brand.
Yeah, and we are fired up with it. You're at the helm of that, because that means it's going to be great. So congratulations on the new job. It's awesome.
Thank you.
So Stephanie, I'm going to turn to you. So as a female marketing a male-dominated sport, with a background in swimming, how are you able to use your unique perspective and sort of leadership style to excel in your role?
Yeah, thanks, Molly. I feel fortunate in that I've been in China for the past 12 plus years working with the NFL. Our office here is predominantly women, so I feel like maybe there hasn't been as much of the divide that you might see in other places. However, I think the one thing that just what I can bring to the table as someone who didn't play the sport, or didn't grow up around it as that involved, I think is that you're always looking to bring in different perspectives. And I think that that's the one thing that the NFL certainly values and appreciates is, who's the fan base that we're talking to. It's not just people that have played the game. I think especially in the US and particularly around the world, people who didn't grow up with a geographical tie or a generational tie to the sport. You need those different perspectives to be able to market the game and to make it and to view it, how it will appeal to others who maybe didn't have that background as well. So I feel like the perspective that I'm able to bring, one as an athlete, but then also as someone who is a little bit separate from the sport, has certainly helped in that regard.
Yeah, and also obviously marketing football in China. And we talked on the phone last week how it's just such a different culture, and there are not many people playing football. So tell us a little bit about how you're approaching that and how you're bringing the game to people who maybe haven't played. And I know you said that many more people are starting to play, but maybe talk about how you're approaching that within your environment.
Yes, absolutely. So I think because there's not the growing up seeing the sport here, there is that kind of lack of local relevance. One of the ways that people come into the sport here is by our players and our athletes, and being able to kind of storytell around that, and people here, there's, like I mentioned before, there's no reason why they would have become a fan just by being, right? So I think it's a lot of highlighting the players, the teams. Of course, with the time change, everything that we've been focused on is very digital first. So that's been, I think, an area that we've certainly helped, I think, to innovate and think about how can we present this in a different way that would appeal to the people who we're speaking to, particularly over on this side of the world.
Awesome. And in the US, how engaged are women as consumers of the NFL just in general?
Yeah, I think that people maybe might discount and say, oh, well, this is, I mean, and certainly not as the traditional view has always been, oh, this is definitely a male dominated sport because you're seeing what the players are doing on the field. However, particularly in the most recent time frame, you've seen a lot more women, whether that's as officials, as coaches, involved with the front office. And when you're talking to the audience, I think the audience for the NFL in the US is nearly split 50-50. So if you think about the audience and the people that are watching the game and tuning in who care about the sport, it certainly is, I wouldn't say it's male dominated by any means. So you have to think about ways that you can consistently speak to that audience. And as Whitney mentioned, how can you highlight more women and the women's part of the game? And I think that that's something I know that the NFL and Nike announced earlier in the year, a partnership to help increase participation for girls in flag football. And I think that that's certainly a great start. And how can we get girls and women involved at all levels?
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. Okay, Bella, I'm going to come to you. So we're all dying to know, what has the transition been like from going to playing here at Princeton to playing professionally, both in the US as part of the WNBA? I mean, I remember the first time I saw you, I was at a restaurant and I was with my kids and I looked up and I started screaming that you were on TV and making some serious three-pointers. So you're making us all very proud. But how's that transition been?
Yeah, I honestly still feel like I'm in the process of making that transition, especially given this first year. In the real world as a pro has been so unorthodox. Obviously our season ended super early. I was cut short because of the pandemic, and my WNBA draft night was from my basement, from like an iPhone streaming to ESPN, instead of like in New York, all like glammed up. And, my first WNBA season was in a bubble in Florida with a rigorous schedule. We played every other day, basically the whole summer. And I lived in a hotel room, which, I didn't really expect. And it can be a little bit isolating, especially as a new player to a league. It's almost like coming in your freshman year and living, in a single dorm room. So it was definitely, crazy. And I think the relationships and the friendships I made on my team were really important to making it a fun experience. It's a lot. I mean, transitioning from college to the pros, there's so much to learn. It's my job now. So it's not like I have school and basketball, but like this is the thing I have to focus so much of my time on. And it has been challenging, but I think I've learned to be like super adaptable and to live with like the uncertainty of life. I'm not great at that, but I've really learned to appreciate that. Living overseas is quite an experience, especially given COVID and the restrictions we're under and curfews and everything. But I think Princeton like really prepared me for this opportunity. I've met people from all over the world, from so many different experiences, and I can really appreciate the culture and just the challenge of like moving to a new country and becoming a part of a team during such a crazy time. So I've really enjoyed it. It's been a huge blessing because I get to play my sport even during a pandemic. That doesn't, go unnoticed, that I get to continue to do that even given the circumstances. So I'm just really grateful that I've gotten this opportunity this year.
Yeah, and I was listening to your vlog this summer when you were in the bubble. You didn't know that I'd be listening to you, Bella, but
No, I didn't.
It was pretty cool. But let me ask you another question. So, what role do you think professional athletes have in sort of advocating for social justice issues? I know that WNBA was just so front and center and out and really pushing really important ideas and causes and really doing a phenomenal job sort of taking a real stand on important issues. How do you and your teammates look at that challenge and look at that opportunity?
Yeah, so obviously, like I said, this season was so unorthodox, and even deciding to play was a big decision for all the WNBA players, given that you could get COVID or you'd be isolated in a bubble for 3 months. It's a huge decision to make. And I think the main thing we realized is there was strength in numbers. And if we could have unity in our messaging in terms of social justice issues, racial equality issues, we could accomplish a lot. And the season wasn't just going to be about playing basketball, but it was going to be about making a positive change. And we came in with the goal to say Breonna Taylor's name every night, to wear it on our jerseys, to make sure that we were all unified as a league and how we were going to make, ourselves heard. And I think we were really successful in it. We obviously saw the Georgia Senate flip. We were a big part of the Warnock campaign. And I think the fact that every team in the league was on the same page with the same messaging, we weren't like discombobulated, we were constantly in conversation with each other, made it so much more powerful and allowed us to accomplish positive social change. So yeah, I think it's just the strength in numbers was just a huge part of that.
Yeah, let me ask you just one more question. So the WNBA is coming up on its 25th anniversary this coming year. So how old are you? You're right around 25, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood, a little younger.
Yeah.
23, yeah, you're very young. But so did you always dream of playing in the WNBA? Was that something that was on your radar as because you had someone to look up to? You had something to aspire to? Was that really important to you? Or when did you start knowing that this might be a reality for you?
Honestly, I've always looked up to female athletes, but I didn't necessarily think I didn't really have the confidence to believe that I can make it to the WNBA, especially as a middle schooler and high schooler. And I really looked up to a lot of players and tried to style my game off of them, but I really did gain the confidence and honestly trusted myself that I could make it there because I had teammates and coaches who told me that was an actual goal I could achieve in the future. But having positive female role models is so important, especially female athletes. And once I had that dream in my head around my freshman year of college, I watched the WNBA all the time, and that became a real dream for me. And I was able to model a lot of my game off of players that I watched on TV. And they're more than just athletes. And I think seeing them portrayed so positively in the media and on social media was really important to me as well.
Awesome. If you can see it, you can be it. And the viewership was way up this year too with the WNBA, which is pretty remarkable. Women's sports in general viewership was up in a lot of different areas, which was phenomenal to see during this last year, and I think has allowed more young women to aspire to be like you. So great job with leading in that way and making us all so proud. Okay, Jill, I'm going to come back to you. So you founded your own law firm. You were the general counsel for USA Track and Field, the LPGA. You teach at Columbia. You serve on the Knight Commission, which is a really important part of college athletics. And you have a lot of amazing opinions and ideas on women's athletics. If you had a magic wand, where would you focus to make immediate change? What do you think needs to happen to allow women's athletics to continue to grow? Big things and small things.
Wow. Before I answer that huge question, can I just speak to the social justice issue that Bella just spoke to?
Please do.
What I do want to say is how proud I am of the myriad of women athletes who have stood up for social justice. And I know that this is a smart Princeton audience, so I don't really need to say this, but for those who want to say shut up and dribble, maybe they don't understand that basketball players who are born in America are citizens with the right to vote and the right to self-expression. So, like every other citizen who has a job and can vote, a basketball player has a job and can vote and should be able to express their opinion. So kudos to you women for what you did in the WNBA and across women's professional sports. What I would like to see in my professional career, I've been an attorney for 3 decades now, and I've been a sports attorney for about that much of time. And I would like to see more women wherever I go. There are certain aspects of the legal career like litigation or even sports arbitration where I don't see the women, and I don't, there are a lot of reasons why women might not be there, in part because sports law is very competitive, and I'm sure a lot of folks get elbowed out. But just to give you an example, I taught a sports arbitration course this spring at Columbia Law School, and for the last 2 years, I've had one woman among all the men in the class, right? So, maybe that's just a level of interest, but I would really love to go into some of my arbitration hearings where I sit as an arbitrator and see more women advocating on behalf of clients. And I don't know whether some of it is a sense of them, that they're just not an interest in it, or if some of the sense that maybe this isn't for women. But I'd like to really encourage young women who go into law to don't be discouraged from the really sort of high level or just interesting aspects of law, because you see a lot of men there and maybe they're trying to elbow you out, or it's competitive. Because I got to tell you, I sit as an arbitrator and I judge lawyers all the time. I do a lot of mediation, and there are a lot of people who are not women, who are not doing a great job. So we can do better than that. So I'd love to see more women. And the number of times I'm in meetings and I'm the only woman, or I'm the only woman of color, or even more importantly, I'm the only woman of color who's voicing an opinion, because there's a high sort of intimidation factor in some environments when it's all men and they're all these macho guys from football and basketball, and it's intimidating. It's intimidating even for me, but I've kind of just kind of suck it up and take a deep breath and really express myself. And we need more women to do that. One of my friends who's an attorney who worked at the NFL and who's now at the NCAA told me, he said, when you go girl, express those opinions, because even though you're the only one speaking up, there are 5 other people who wish they could have the guts to say that. So we women need to step up and do more of that and be more in those rooms.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jill, just one follow-up to that. So we talked a little bit, I think it was last week, about some of the challenges, specific challenges that you have faced in the world of sports, being one of the only women in the boardroom or in a specific setting. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, in our planning meeting, I asked how honest you want me to be. So let me be honest. The great thing about working for yourself and being as old as I am is that I'm not looking for my next job, and I'm self-employed. So there's a lot of bullying, even at what you would consider professional boards and committees. I sit on lots of boards and committees. I've sat on lots of boards and committees. My NCAA experience was I was on the committee on infractions. There were a variety of different individuals who were involved in the committee on infractions, judging whether student athletes and coaches and administrators had violated NCAA rules. But I found that my voice was not welcomed a lot, and that, I felt, I would characterize it as bullied and sort of sidelined. And I can't tell you all the reasons why. One of the reasons clearly is because I'm a woman. I had some of the men say things to me like they would mention the name of a really prominent, say, football or basketball coach and say, "Do you know who that is?" As if like I'm an idiot and I don't know sports, right? So just there are things like that. It's really, I'm sitting on the Athletics Integrity Board right now, which oversees all the integrity doping issues for the sport of track and field worldwide. And we make policy decisions and we give guidance. And there are times when we're considering policies, and I'm saying, well, wait a minute, you've just handed us this written up policy without consulting the board and letting us weigh in on it. And by the way, this is a policy that impacts women very significantly. So I would like us to take the time to hear from women around the world who have different perspectives, so that we're just not arrogantly coming up with a policy for the whole world based on a worldview that doesn't take into account certain women in different circumstances, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I've definitely, as strong as I am and as you know, as I appear, there have been many times on boards where it's been made clear to me that as a woman, as a woman whose sport was track and field, as someone who was not there to advocate for basketball, men's basketball or football, that the issues that I want to talk about just don't seem as important to them, and I have to keep saying at the Knight Commission, but what about the women's sports? But what about the women's sports? Sometimes in other contexts too, I get men who say to me, they sort of have this attitude that the women in college sports should be grateful for the men making all this money that allows us to do sports as women. But you know what I like to think about is, and I'm not calling for it, but I just think it should be pondered. What if women who control the household budget, who do a lot of the purchasing for their young children, and who are 50% of the population, stop supporting male sports, right? If we took our money away and our viewership away from male sports, would they respect us then because they would recognize the impact that we have? So that's just something to think about. The NFL got religion at some point and came up with this whole apparel line for women. So yeah, I mean, I'll get off my soapbox now.
So Jill, you were true to your word. You were going to be honest. So I love it. Thank you for that. Stephanie, I mean, we touched on that a little bit, just in terms of how the NFL is marketing to the women fan base, which I think has been wildly successful. I mean, there are other specific strategies that you know that the NFL is employing right now to build the audience, a female audience.
Yeah, well, I think it just goes back to not only female audience, but also I think I'm a strong believer of, if you see it, you can be it, right? And allowing women to, and girls to, as Bella said, you have to have positive role models. So making sure that you see women on the field, that you see women playing the game as well. And I think that one thing that the NFL has really kind of highlighted, especially in the last few years, has been kind of this whole, just a separate kind of women in football careers forum. And how can you strengthen that pipeline of women coming into the game, and how can you help find mentors for them so that there is a way in, and it's not just standing on the outside looking in. I think that there has to be more active action on getting women into the game, and I think at all levels, as I mentioned, I think that that's very important.
We have some amazing women on our football staff here at Princeton who are doing a tremendous job on the field and in the administration. So it's been great to see. Okay, so we only have a couple more minutes in this part of the panel, and everyone's going to get to dig in more deeply with our panelists. But Whit, you obviously have known you for 30 plus years, and so proud of the career you've had. We have some student athletes on this call here today. One, I think, who's going to be maybe working with Nike this summer. I think I saw her bop on, which is incredible. But what advice do you have for our aspiring student athlete leaders, listening to this conversation, and sort of ways that they can advance through their career and something that they're really passionate about the way that you have?
Yeah. I love that question. I think, I think it's the obvious answer that I would give to everyone on this call is be so proud of being an athlete. That is so friggin' awesome. You have developed an incredible tool set that you will leverage, honestly, for the rest of your career. So it is around teamwork, resilience, whatever it may be, and everything that everyone has said. That is an incredible position to be in. There's different ways of answering this question. I think one of the things I can say that from kind of where I am and sitting and talking to so many people, even recruits trying to come into Nike, I think what you can be, the most important is be you and be authentic to who you are. So that comes in the form of knowing what your why is. Why are you doing what you're doing at this point in your life, and knowing the values that you depend on is so important, because you'll be thrown decisions that feel super uncomfortable. And so if you don't do things for yourself and make you feel great, it is not worth it. And you will not be in a great position wherever you are in your career. So that's a big one for me, that I keep on revisiting my why, and that has changed over the period of my life. The why was probably very much about me in the beginning, and then it became very much about my family. And then it's, in every kind of 5 years that evolves, and that is okay. And I always use kind of like, look at Serena Williams' life and how her why has absolutely transformed over periods of time, where it was about who she was and where she came from and proving a point, to then being the greatest athlete of all time, and her wanting to be that GOAT, not a female GOAT, but overall the best athlete. And then now it's very much about the next generation of her child being the most important thing in her life. And so knowing your why is a big one for me. I think the other big one for me is the hunger, and Princeton clearly does this, the hunger to learn and curiosity. I look for that in anyone who comes in front of me. And that comes, it doesn't matter what you're interested in, be interested in something, and know that you're not ever going to be, you have to continue to learn to be great at that. And so be hungry to learn. And again, in my career, that learning was about just being a great business person. And now, as I've kind of grown in my career, it's about being, frankly, a great coach. And how do I figure out how to recruit the best team, develop the best team, make sure that people are delivering and performing at their biggest potential. And so having that curiosity is another big one that I look for. And then the other one is find your confidence. And we got to find our confidence. And so I've always depended on the people who aren't in my immediate life, but who have known me the longest, who can give me the straight talk. And being like, one, you're being freaking ridiculous, or two is like, get back on the horse and you've got it. And just speak real to you. You need that, because you'll get knocked down. And so make sure you're constantly thinking about who are you going to tap into for your confidence. That can be your family, that can be really anyone. So those are my big ones.
Those are good ones. I think there's some of those people who speak truth to you are on this call today. Huh? I've seen some of our teammates pop in on the the event.
I see a couple of them on my screen. They're probably hysterically laughing. Luckily, they're off video.
Yeah, they'll tell you how it is. I saw Corinne jump in at one point, so she may have to jump in here and ask you some more difficult questions as we go.
No, that's okay. Let's keep her on mute.
So Bella, talk to me about how, sort of what are some of the guiding principles of the WNBA? I mean, how is the WNBA trying to position itself with new leadership, amazing leadership, I think right now at the WNBA, and sort of really with the collective bargaining agreement really took a lot of steps forward. And again, viewership is up, interest in the WNBA is way up. How do you think the league is kind of progressing right now?
Yeah, I think this is a really exciting time. As you mentioned earlier, this is like the 25th anniversary of the, creation of the WNBA. And I think one thing I've noticed is that the WNBA is starting to tell the stories of the women, not just the athletes. I saw it in the bubble, they were filming the mothers, the people who have stories like beyond just playing on the court. And I think there's just a huge untapped marketing opportunity for female athletes, and the WNBA and other, female leagues are starting to recognize that. And I'm really excited about the growth that the WNBA and these other leagues are having in these past few years. But I do really think it's about the person, beyond the sport, and making sure that, Stephanie, you're talking about this, it's the athletes that tell the stories, and making sure that those messages are visible to fans. And I think that's how the game grows, is when you can have fans really understand the athletes and their families and their stories and how far they've come. Because I think sometimes, women's athletics are seen as like the second-class citizens. We deal with a lot of the sexism and just not getting the proper recognition. And I'm really proud that I'm part of the league that's making sure that they're recognizing, these women as strong, powerful humans, and I love it. So I'm really excited about the growth I've seen.
Yeah, and our panelists last night talked about investing in women's sports because it's a good investment, because they can make money off of it, and because it now is the time to do so, not because it's a sort of sideshow to the men's game in all the sports, and how they have really put their money where their mouth is, and they're investing in women's sports because they think they're going to get a return on it, and they think that now is the time, and it's really going to help not only women's sports but women in society, women in other leadership roles. So thanks for your leadership on that. We love seeing you do that, and not just killing it on the basketball court, but also leading in other ways. So Stephanie, let me come back to a similar question that I asked Whit. You know, you've had a really interesting career and doing many different things that people think sort of as a dream job, working for the NFL. What would you say to our aspiring student athlete leaders on how they can sort of really succeed in their careers?
Yeah, I mean, Whitney, I would say, summed it up very nicely. She took all my answers away. But no, I think that it's finding your why is a big one. I think that one thing that Princeton taught me during my time there, and I hope my coach is on here, but it really is a
yes, she is. I saw her.
I think learning just to for us, it was competing for ourselves, right? I think growing up as athletes, you're always trying, for me, it was a lot of seeking approval of, you know, my coaches who were predominantly male. And it wasn't until I had a female coach at Princeton that, you know, she was like, why are you swimming, right? Why are you doing this? And it was really a kind of from within, you know, figuring out why you're doing what you're doing. I think another thing as people look, as you know, our younger athletes look to kind of enter the workforce, I think making sure that you can do your job, right? First and foremost is making sure that you're able to get the job done. You have the skills to be able to do that, from, you know, just goal setting, identifying what are you trying to achieve and how can we help get there. I think that just as us being former athletes, that's certainly something that stays with you. And then also just, I think looking at always keeping that learner's mindset, and at the same time making sure that you're coachable, because I think that especially for me, coming into even swimming at Princeton, you know, maybe like Jill, there was a little bit of a swagger, you know, you think that you know best, you're young at that age, but realizing that you certainly do have a lot to contribute, but being willing to kind of hear and listen to those who have experience, who are more often than not willing to help you.
Yeah, awesome. And that's one of the greatest things about Princeton athletics, I think, is our role models and the coaches that we have, male and female, and the mentorship that they provide. You know, we talk all the time about education through athletics as sort of our core mission. And Coach Teeter, I think I did see her jump on here, and she has taught me many things, and I didn't even swim for her, just, you know, working with her over the last several years. One of the things she said that I just still come back to sometimes when I'm stressing out about something, she would say to her student athletes, sometimes you just have to jump in and swim. Just dive in and swim. Don't think about it too much. Don't obsess about it. Just dive, jump in, and make it happen. I know, Teeter, you're shaking your head right now saying that's what you got to do. Just sometimes jump in and swim. So awesome. So Kel, I think we're at our time right now. I know everybody's dying to get to be together in community and to start to ask each other some more questions and to share some insight into the world of women's athletics, the world of sort of college athletics. So I think we're going to transition into I can't swim. Teeter just asked if I could swim. I cannot, actually. I am by far the worst swimmer in my family, but I can beat Coach Saylor in pickleball. So that's all that probably matters. Right, Chris?
Doesn't Princeton have the swimming test anymore for freshmen?
No more swimming test.
Ah,
yeah.
Things have changed.
Yes, indeed. So yes, Bella cannot join us in the breakouts because we told her she wasn't allowed to because she needs to get some sleep, because it's now probably 2 in the morning and she's getting a little sleepy. But Bella, thank you so much for joining us. You were amazing. You continue to make us proud, and we're all going to be cheering you on. And everyone should buy one of those hoodies. I told you before we got started, I bought one of those WNBA hoodies, and I think it's a remarkable marketing campaign, and it sort of puts our stamp on many things in society. So thanks again, Bella. And
thank you guys.
All right, see ya. And I think we're going to go, Mason, right? You're going to shoot us into some breakout rooms, and we have some great leaders who will lead our conversation.